Those rare moments of sweet harmony couldn't be sustained once they left the cottage and returned to their city duties and the family home.
Mrs. Jackman always loved to have all her children together for dinner, say Sunday dinner or anything. But all those children together was a nightmare because none of them got on, and they all pushed the other, so there'd be explosions of arguments and fights and whatnot.
There were fights, certainly. Kids fight some of them. I hate to say it, but I remember better father insulting mother, making snide remarks, which would turn her into tears. She would go upstairs and cry, and it was pretty painful for all of us.
You'd always say, lower your voice. Lower your voice, Mary. Lower your voice.
This included yelling at her and disdaining her collection of literature, of the Bloomsbury Group, of her contemporary Canadian art.
As tensions became more pronounced at home, especially between the parents, I realized that things weren't perfect, and I'd better find love and friendship elsewhere rather than in the home, if that's what I was looking for. That's what sort of drove us all out of the home, I think, to a certain extent, because we didn't find it at home. I wanted to make him a Catholic. She saw it coming, and when Father shouted out to her, Eddie's become a Roman Catholic, a terrible thing. I said, well, I think she said something like, don't let it hurt you too much. You'd only make it painful on yourself if you want to. He wanted me to become establishment Anglican and that sort of thing.
The tensions drove your mother out of the home.
I suppose it might have, yes. Yes. Perhaps that's why she took on so much, to be liberated from the home, just to have a different life outside to counterbalance perhaps the drudgery of home life.
Mm-hmm. Mother and I shared a bathroom, and I would see bruises on her body sometimes. And she'd always say she, ran into a table, the kind of thing that women have said for ages. Mm-hmm. And then at some point in my teenage years, I connected the fights from the night before with the bruises the next day. And I remember one morning on my way to school, and I saw Father push her down, and she fell down the stairs from the second floor landing. And I think this violence that I saw and heard as a teenager, I remember as fast as I possibly could. Once Hal left the family house, I wanted to move up to his room. I wanted to get away from the floor they were on.
She told me that her life was not really that happy. She said that sometimes they have an argument with Mr. Jackman, and it always end up in hitting her. So I told her, I said, why don't you separate? She said, I don't want to divorce because I want the money to be intact for my children.
And it's always been a hope of mine that my brothers and I and their children, mother's grandchildren, would understand that their wealth, in part, has to do with the life my mother chose to lead and the pain she chose to endure. I very much remember her tenderness towards me. And in a more academic way, I remember her struggle and the compromises to survive that women continue to make in our society.
Can you imagine the quantity of energy that goes into being in despair and going out and trying to smile day after day in the very public life that the Jackmans lived? I can't imagine the energy it took to do that, and then to have all these other interests. But That's the stuff of women.
During the darkest times, Mary's lifelong gift for friendship kept her spirit alive.
I think the magic of the friendship between Eleanor and Mary and myself is all related to that giving and sharing, never dollars. There was never, but it was this enthusiasm for our particular part in the creative process.
Eleanor and Beth recognized Mary as a kindred spirit during their work on the Dayspring Festival. This innovative celebration of the arts in Mary's spiritual home, the Metropolitan United Church, incorporated art, dance, and music into the liturgy.
And Mary was remarkable at making things happen.
I think she was basically a free spirit. She had an exploratory mind.
We certainly had to tread quite gently to start with, and there were people who took great exception to the dance and were very accusatory when they came to speak to me about the dance. But then gradually they saw the importance of it, and there were people then who came and with tears in their eyes because they'd been so moved by the performance.
This is what happens with people. They become part of you, and you're grateful for it. And it gives you something that you couldn't possibly have had without them. Socially, I felt I should be on my best behavior.
As people describe her to me, I always sit up straight.
Yes.